All right. Well, I'll kick off with my introduction. How's it going, folks? Super excited to be here and to talk about Google Summer of Code. My name is Logan Kilpatrick. I've been a Google Summer of Code, Google Season of Docs, Google Code and Mentor, and admin for the last 2 years now as part of the Julia organization, and helping out with some other organizations as well. So yeah, really excited to help sort of share the perspective of a maintainer slash admin. I was never a student for Google Summer of Code, but worked very closely with all of our students that participate. So again, super excited. And Kunal, if you're ready, I'll pass it over to you to give the quick intro.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm Kunal. I've been a Google Summer of Code student with Red Hat Middleware, and I've been a mentor twice at Google Summer of Code, and I was also a mentor at Google Coding, like Logan, and I've also been involved in other open source programs as a mentor and a mentee, like the MLS Fellowship, Linux Foundation mentorship program, and yeah. So yeah, happy to answer questions today.
I love it. Yeah, Kunal, I think your experience is going to be super helpful for students. And I'll also make the disclaimer that and a few messages that I got about this Twitter space where we're talking about, what are we going to talk about, all that sort of stuff. A lot of the resources to help folks get started with Google Summer of Code are out there. I would seek out those resources. I'll give Kunal a quick plug because he has a bunch of really great videos that are I would consider to be sort of timeless. Like year over year, how to be successful in Google Summer of Code doesn't really change. So if you find the videos from last year or the articles from last year, those can be really helpful resources. I think the main ideas, again, continue to be the same year over year. So definitely seek out those resources, and it doesn't need to be sort of new for 2022 to be helpful. But yeah, Kunal, I think sort of starting out, I think the biggest sort of challenge that I see folks have with Google Summer of Code is just taking that first step. And I saw you put out a tweet or replied to a tweet. Somebody was asking, like, hey, is it too late for me to get started for Google Summer of Code this year? And I want to hear your perspective on this. I think I actually have a different opinion, but interested to hear what you think. For somebody who hasn't done any contributions yet, and they're joining this space today and they want to contribute, can that person still make it for Google Summer of Code this year?
I believe it like depends on which project you're choosing and stuff. So when does the let me just check the timeline real quick. Summer of Code timeline. So it says that okay, today is 30th March, and it's saying that ideas you have to submit by the application period begins on April 4th. So April 19th is the deadline. So you have like 20 days or something. Okay. So to be quite frank, in most cases for this year it may be too late because it's a very competitive program and students start contributing since like December or January. Um, what I would recommend is like the silver lining is that it's actually early for next year. So if you start contributing right now, the mindset that I would want you all to have is don't worry about like getting selected and stuff. Just worry about contributing to open source and learning and building your skill set and just being a good contributor. So if you highlight all these skills in the community, then obviously your application stands out quite a lot. So in Google Summer Code, you have to submit a proposal. But the thing is that the most important thing that gets a person accepted is it's actually not the proposal, it's how engaging you have been in the community before the GSOC period. Um, Obviously, proposal is important. I'm not saying like that's not required, it's absolutely mandatory, and you have to, you know, share about what you're going to do and your uh, plan, for example, and get it reviewed, so on and so forth. But the most important part is basically, at least in my experience as a mentor, and when I've collaborated with like other mentors, we look for folks who are generally interested in like open source. So even though I mean nothing is impossible, so definitely try out. Do apply this year. That is what I would recommend. I'm not saying that, if it's too late, you shouldn't apply, because you will get an understanding of what things, are like, how the application period works and everything. Um, if you really are keen on participating in Google Summer of Code, then um, try to look for a project that does not have many other students contributing to it. Usually, these projects are like difficult, large scale projects. And what happens is that if these are difficult type projects, then not many students will be contributing, and the competition sort of like reduces. Um, but overall, like, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Like, even if you don't get selected in GSOC, you can still contribute. But and now the other additional good thing is that it's not only for students. So it's not like you only have the chance to be a GSOC student in your college or something. You can definitely apply after you have graduated also. So it's not like you're bound by time, which I know many students were like, I'm in my final year now. It's now or never, because then I won't be a student anymore. So is it too late? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, on an average, yeah, it is, because students have already started like contributing and stuff. But still, that doesn't stop you from applying. To apply and prepare well for next year.
Yeah, Kunal, I love this answer, and specifically two pieces that you mentioned. One of the very true statements you made is about that sort of pressure of, it's my last year as a student. I won't be able to do Google Summer of Code after this. And I think it's really cool that Google Summer of Code has actually opened up that eligibility for so many more folks. So now, again, after you graduate, if you still want to get involved in open source, you still have that flexibility. You still can get involved. You don't have to be a current student to get involved. So I think that's awesome. And the other piece about, it might be too late this year. I agree with you. It really probably depends on the project. What I would say for folks is, again, if you're going to compete against, other people in this ecosystem for a Google Summer of Code slot, think about, are there other students who are contributing? Where can I add the most value? If I only have 2 weeks to sort of show that I'm interested and eligible to be a Google Summer of Code student, really try to be as intentional as possible about what you're doing. Don't just go in and sort of, you know, make random contributions or, write a random blog post. Like, really focus on, work with the mentor, work with the maintainers, and figure out how you can sort of prove to the people who are mentoring for the specific organization that if you come in and join the project, you're going to add a bunch of value. So I totally agree with you. And the mindset that Kunal laid out, I resonate with, and I think makes a ton of sense. Like, if you do all this stuff with only the motivation and my my Twitter time limit for the day. If you go into Google Summer of Code with the thought process of, I'm only doing this because I want to, do Google Summer of Code, get it on my resume, get the stipend for being a student, et cetera, et cetera. The outcome for you isn't going to be the same as if you go in contributing to Google Summer of Code thinking, I want to be a good open source contributor. I want to learn these skills. I want to be, get all this value out of it. That's sort of uncorrelated, honestly, with Google Summer of Code as a project. Google Summer of Code is like a nice cherry on top of contributing to open source, but it's sort of not the main reason that you should be thinking about being a contributor in these things. So it's food for thought, and that's obviously one perspective. And some people might have a differing opinion, but yeah, I think that's great, Kunal. Let's, unless Kunal, if there's any other sort of high level points you want to make, maybe we dive in and sort of answer some questions for folks.
No, I believe we'll get more points when we start answering questions, so you can take questions.
Cool. Then let me bring some folks up to stage. We'll kick off with Gathin as soon as you're connected. Gathin, if you want to ask your first question.
Hello,
Hello,
can I ask a
am I
question?
audible?
Yeah, Gathin, we'll do your question first, and then Saksham will go to you next.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, my doubt is even if I start to contribute to a particular project now, won't it be? It's really late, right, for me to get started with it now?
Yeah, so I think this was the point that Kunal was raising before, and that it might be a little late. I think Kunal actually put out a tweet earlier this week, which was sort of in line with a really long thread that was happening on the Google Summer of Code mentors email list, and basically a lot of mentors were talking about they're not seeing a lot of engagement with Google Summer of Code this year, which actually means for students who haven't started yet, it could be a really awesome opportunity to make contributions if you haven't yet, because organizations are seeing a really low amount of engagement. So I definitely think that it might be too late depending on the project. If there's a bunch of other people who have already started contributing and are really actively engaged, it's hard to start right now. But in general, projects are seeing much less engagement than they have in the past, which is a really big opportunity for students who have not yet started contributing yet. So I don't think that all hope is lost.
Thank you so much, Logan. Thank you, Kunal.
Yeah, of course. Saksham, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm in first year and I just learned web development and some DSA from Kunal. And I just want to know how can I start to go open source? I can't find like how can get started? I'm just missed there only. Can you please help me with that?
I'll give another plug for Kunal's videos. I'm sure that Kunal has has a getting started with open source video, which I'd suggest watching, Saksham, and just sort of get a better sense of the mechanics of contributing to open source, what's all involved, all that sort of stuff. Kunal, I'll pass it to you if you want to dive in and add something.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that you are watching too many videos. Don't watch many. I never watched a video when I started contributing to open source that like videos like how to get into GSOC, how to start contributing or whatever. I just started. It's just software development. Tech. You're a student who is your entire 4 years of college is based on computer science. So it's not no like no rocket science. It's just software. You use it, you contribute to it, and you learn on the go. So the community would be there to help you. The weirdest thing is that folks often ask me, like when they find a project or whatever, or when they aspire to contribute. So they're like, I want to contribute to this project. Kunal, can you help me? How can I help you when I haven't contributed to that project, right? So the folks who can help you are the project maintainers and the community members. So my videos, yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good overview and everything. And thanks, Logan, for the shout out. But to be quite frank, my videos aren't that helpful. I haven't said anything that would you know um, automatically boost your uh, whatever. Like in the end, you would have to work. You would have to go through the project, and you would have to ask questions, get stuck, Google answers. That's what's getting started is all about. Getting started is not like watching some videos and devising a roadmap or whatever. No. So the last thing is it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So um, don't be demotivated if you're not seeing results in like a month or something. Give it like 3 months, 4 months or something, and then you'll be a contributor.
Yeah, Kunal, I like that perspective. I think really diving into whatever the ecosystem, if it's Saksham for you, if it's open source web development, because that's sort of your the classes you've taken in your education so far, finding an open source project that has the web components, start trying to contribute, look through, be a part of that community. And I think it becomes much more clear as you've sort of started going through that process where the opportunities to contribute are and how you can get more involved in the ecosystem. So I definitely a big plus one, Kunal. I agree. You have to sort of take that first step, start contributing before maybe it becomes 100% clear where all those opportunities are to actually get more involved in the open source ecosystem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kunal and Logan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And Kunal, you are just going great for the community.
I love it. Yeah, great question. Um, Ahmad, do you want to ask the next question?
Hi. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. What I just want to ask is this. You are saying that we have to like be contributing to the particular open source project we want to apply to before the Google Summer of Code starts. My question is now this: what if I've been contributing to other open source projects, or I have my own personal open source project that I'm building, and I've not been contributing to the particular open source project that I want to apply to? Is that also possible? Or is it necessary for me to have been contributing to that particular one before I can apply?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Ahmad. Kunal, do you want to go first on this one?
Well, can you maybe clarify it? I don't think I got it.
Yeah, Ahmad was saying he is a potential contributor to other open source projects, and he has his own personal open source projects, but he hasn't contributed to the specific project that he wants to apply for Google Summer of Code for, and he's wondering if that experience contributing to those other projects will help him get selected for Google Summer of Code.
Oh yes, that's definitely a plus point. Valid open source contributions in other projects. You should definitely mention in your GSOC proposal as well. But yeah, right now, if you want to get started with a particular project for Google Summer of Code, you only have like 20 days. So I would recommend try contributing to that now as well.
Yeah, and Ahmad,
But your previous one will definitely help.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was just going to say, in the context of the Julia project, what we often look for is you've just made some contribution to a Julia project in some capacity. So you don't have to necessarily have made a bunch of core contributions to the specific project that you're looking for. But if you've made Julia contributions in another capacity to another project, that can be sort of a great signal to us as we're looking at whether or not you actually have the skills necessary to succeed in Google Summer of Code. So I would assume that other projects do the same thing. If it's web development and you've made contributions to some other open source web development projects, I think that experience will definitely carry over. But I agree with Kunal again that probably for these next few weeks, I would focus your open source activities on whatever it is the project that you actually want to get selected for.
Okay. Yeah, that's just what I want to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great questions. And thanks for being here. Henry, you want to go next with the next question?
I just to answer one of the students' questions, who actually the developers' questions. I think one talked about like how do they get to start, right? I think the best way to get to start, you don't even have to worry about it. You just go to the projects, and the mentors are actually going to start it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Henry, the only sort of points that I'll raise with respect to the mentors is the mentors are oftentimes fielding a lot of requests. They also probably have their own full-time job, and they're trying to maintain this open source project. So if you go as a student to the mentor and you send them a message and say something like, "Hey, I'm not really sure how to get started," it's really difficult for that mentor to have the time and the bandwidth to actually help you get started and make that initial contribution. So you do as a student have to do a lot of that work initially yourself. The mentors just don't have enough bandwidth to onboard 20 students individually into that open source project. So but yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Let's go to Prathamesh. You want to ask the next question, Prathamesh?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Logan. Actually, I had just a little question about the internal selection criteria. So, does the organization select at least one contributor for each of their listed projects, or does the organization select only the top few proposals for their organizations? For example, um, if an organization has total 16 listed projects, does the organization select at least one candidate for each of those 16 projects, or does it select only the top 5, top 6, or top 10 candidates?
In my experience, they try to get as many projects selected. but I'm not sure if that's with every organization. But the organization in which I have mentored, they try to get like multiple projects selected. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say though that it's not like if there's not someone who's super qualified, like that's at the end of the day, that's what it ends up coming down to. If projects are looking for and mentors and organizers are looking for qualified people, it's not like we're going to take somebody less qualified who doesn't have the skills necessary just because we want to match a student up with some specific project. At the end of the day, too, even if they did do that, the projects are all sort of it's in like a list, it's in an order of like how badly we want a specific student for a specific project. So you might be internally sort of selected for a project, but you might be hypothetically number 16 out of 16 for the 16 projects. So it's unlikely that you'll actually, even though we have you sort of slotted for one of those slots, it's unlikely you'll end up actually getting a slot, because Google usually only gives organizations like half the amount of slots that they request. So you Prathamis, does that help answer the question at all?
Yeah, that was an excellent answer. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. I'd also suggest go and read the mentor and the organizer's guide on the Google Summer of Code website, because a lot of this stuff is answered there from a mentor and organizing standpoint, and then you can get a better sense of how the whole process works. But yeah, great questions, and again, thanks for being here. Abhijit, do you want to ask the next question?
Hey Logan, great session. Actually, I have this doubt. Like, can you please give a proper prerequisites before applying for Google Summer of Code?
I'll make the quick statement that if there's any formal prerequisites, they're on the Google Summer of Code website. I think, as Kunal mentioned earlier, and as I mentioned earlier as well, I think the biggest thing is, open source contributions are probably the best thing that you can have. And it's not always necessarily, like Kunal said, anything can happen. You could have no open source contributions, apply for Google Summer of Code, and still get selected. You never know what's going to happen. But for the most part, people who are selected have open source contributions, specifically with the project that they're interested in applying for. So that's probably the biggest prerequisite. But as far as formal stuff, I would look at the Google Summer of Code website for you have to be like 18 plus, but I'm not sure what the other formal requirements are anymore.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Bishal, you want to ask the next question?
Yeah. So, hi Logan. I just want to ask that what kind of open source projects the developers contribute, like if you're a web dev or backend or you're just any kind of developer. So, what kind of projects you can contribute to? If you could give an example.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I can't speak to some of the web development stuff specifically. Kunal, do you know any orgs that you've been a part of? Some of the high level projects of what folks actually do, or maybe you can talk about your own Google Summer of Code project.
Mine was Kubernetes, but you can go on the Google Summer of Code website and you can check out. Are the organizations announced? Yeah, they are announced. So
Yeah.
you can go Summer of Code with google.com/program/2022/organizations, and there you can select web, or you can just select, or there's actually a search bar over there. You can write JavaScript, Node, Python, whatever. Then you click enter. So if I write Node.js, it's showing me 136 organizations that use Node.js: Rocket Chat, Electron, Metacall, About Code, Intel Video, so on and so forth, Checkstyle. So there you go. Not just web development, but anything. I'll write Python or something, or Flask. It's showing me 85 organizations that use Flask. And yeah, it will take some time to go through all these and shortlist it. So yeah, you get to work.
Yeah, but that's part of the fun. I think looking and exploring and finding
Yeah.
new open source projects. So it definitely takes time, but I would, it's an opportunity to get exposed to a bunch of new things that you haven't seen before.
You can You can also see the organizations that have been participating in the last few years. They often seem to have like good culture.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely, that's one of the criteria that I always suggest folks look at. Find organizations that have been in Google Summer of Code for many years now, and those are also likely the organizations that are going to be successful at both mentoring students and also getting slots allocated from Google for those students if you decide to contribute. So I think that's a huge piece of it. So, Bashal, good luck, and thanks for the question. Let's go to Angel of Haze Monkey Society is the username, but I'm not sure if that's your real name or not. But do you want to ask the next question, Angel? Okay. If not, then Jay, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah. Hello, Logan. Hello, Kunal. I just want to ask if I contributed to doc type open source project, means I've contributed to some documentation. Then will this be a plus point for me getting selected for Google Summer of Code?
Kunal, I'm interested to hear your opinion on this as well, but I would say it's definitely a plus point. Whether or not it's enough of a contribution to actually put you over the edge, I think from the Julia organization's perspective, when we look at people, making a documentation contribution is great, but it doesn't actually show us that from a technical perspective, you have the understanding and the skills to actually succeed at Google Summer of Code. So I would say it might not be enough, but it's definitely a positive step.
But there's Google Season of Docs for you then.
Yeah,
Can you
100%.
repeat that? Sorry.
Season of Docs. It's for documentation. Google Season of Docs.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if you
Thank you,
want,
Logan.
Jay, if you want to be a technical writer, Google Season of Docs is a great option. So I would say, first figure out if that is something you want to do, and if Google Summer of Code is what you really want to do, and you want to contribute code to open source projects. I would try to make as many code contributions as possible, because that's ultimately what's going to give the mentors and the organizers the confidence to know that you'd be successful if they selected you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Kunal, for answering the question.
Yeah, of course. Ramakrishnan, you want to go next?
Yeah, hello everyone. I want to ask that should I focus on multiple organizations like 2 or 3 or only on one and contribute before the application?
This is a great question. Kunal, you want to take this? I know you have some opinions.
I would recommend just one. If you're able to give your like 100% and you're making progress and stuff, then one is like you can definitely contribute to more than one. But if you feel like you're not able to give like your like contribute enough, um, if you're contributing, let's say 2 or 3 organizations, and you feel like you're not able to give enough to each and every one of those or even one of those, then I'd recommend one. But if you feel like you have a lot of time and you're, let's say, pretty good at what you do and it's not a bummer for you, so you're contributing to 2 or 3 organizations and you're making significant progress, then you can contribute to as much as you want.
Yeah,
Yes, so in that like from 4th of April to 19th of April, applications are open. So if I like start contribution on 4th also, then also like there is a probability of selection.
This is a very like this question can't be answered. It's obviously like the
Okay.
probability is there, but
Yeah.
what is the probability? It depends on project and depends on how many people are already contributing, right? So
Okay.
probability is actually dependent on how many folks are already actively applying for Google Summer of Code this year. That is why I said that if you want to increase your chances, then pick a project that in which not many folks are applying, which is like maybe a difficult project or something. So when I got started in Go Summer Code, I got selected in my freshman year because my project was difficult, quotes, and not many folks were applying. It was Kubernetes Java client. So every single student I knew were contributing to web development and mobile development, Android, because that's like the niche. every student does mobile development and web development. Nothing wrong in that. I recommend doing web development and stuff, but not many folks were doing like Kubernetes as a student. Forget student, as a freshman. Um, so only two people applied to that project, and both of us got selected. So folks often ask me, how did you make into Google Summer of Code in your first year only? I contributed to open source projects that were like very difficult and not many folks were contributing. It was a great experience and great career choice because when I got introduced to Kubernetes and so many opportunities I got in the same field. I would say it was not that difficult. It just looked a little bit overwhelming, the code base, but it was not that difficult. Other than that, yeah, picking a project in which not many folks are contributing for whatever reason will increase your chances.
Yeah, and Kunal, I love that story. I
Okay,
just wanted
thank
to,
you.
yeah, Ramakrishna, I just wanted to add one other point of reference, which was that the Julia project, when we had a bunch of former Google Summer of Code students come on and do a webinar, like talking about their experience and things like that. And there was like 8 or 9 students on there who were successful Google Summer of Code students, and we asked them the question of how many. Going back to the question that you asked before, we asked them how many organizations did they apply for when they got accepted into Google Summer of Code, and every single one of them said that they only applied for one project. So I would definitely keep that in the back of your mind as you're thinking about applying, and how you're sort of splitting up your energy with all these different projects. Definitely try and keep it as small as possible. Awesome. Thank you again for that question. Let's go to Prabhat.
Hey Logan, hey Kunal, hey everyone. My question is, I've been really wanting to contribute to this project, and it's listed in Google Server of Code. But the thing is, I do not know where to start with a project, since it's my first time contributing to a project with a larger code base that to be very frank, I do not understand. It's pretty intimidating. And yeah, I mean, I want to start with the project before Google Summer of Code begins. uh, so yeah, what kind of people do I talk to, what kind of people do I ask about, where can I find these people to resolve my questions, like the people in the community?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and I actually think, Prabhat, this is something that a lot of people have the same question as they're looking at code bases in Google Summer of Code. So, Kunal, do you want to start with this one, or I can? It's up to you.
You can take that.
Yeah, so I think the sort of easy low hanging fruit on this is go look at good first issues, go look at help wanted issues, get a better understanding of what the project actually needs help with if you want to make these initial contributions. The the disclaimer that I'll make about the good first issues and the help wanted issues is that even though something is labeled as a good first issue doesn't mean that it always is a good first issue. There's no check on that. You can put a good first issue label on anything. So if you have to ask a ask a qualitative or like a actual helpful question on some of those good first issues, don't just go in and say, hey, I'm a Google Summer of Code student, I want to get started, how do I get started on those good first issues? Read the issue, try to understand, and if something isn't clear, then ask like a very specific pointed question that if the next person comes along and you don't end up working on some specific issue, they can see the question that you asked and it's actually going to help them too, because you're clarifying some point about the project. The other thing that I'll add is if you go to any GitHub repository on GitHub and you add the key in the URL, you add /contribute. GitHub actually has a machine learning project, that machine learning platform that runs on all of the issues for a GitHub repository. And if you go to /contribute, it automatically filters and finds issues which GitHub thinks are going to be well suited for somebody to contribute to. So that could be another place to look. And it's a different subset of the good first issues, the help wanted issues, and the regular issues as well. So they have some big machine learning project that they train to actually look for these sort of things. So that's the best way. And As far as the people to contribute to, all the projects for Google Summer of Code have the mentors listed. Again, I'll make the same point that I made before, which is that mentors are time constrained. They have lots of stuff going on. So try to burden the mentors as little as possible. Ask your questions open in the community if you have something. Again, if it's a very specific question that the mentor is well suited to answer, send them the question. They should be listed on the Google project somewhere. Kunal, anything you want
Thank
to?
you, Logan.
Yeah, of course. Anything you want to add to this, Kunal?
I believe you covered everything. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Prabhat, thanks for the question and good luck. Let's go to Mohammed.
Hi Logan and Kunal, this is Mohammed here. Thanks for the guidance, and we'll look forward to it in the next GSOC, as this time I was not able to participate. But now I want to ask a question which is out of the topic. The question is that means we have to be active on Twitter to network with people. So how should I be active on Twitter, and what should I keep on means posting and all? And in one of the video I had seen, he had suggested that we should make blogs. So we should make blogs on other platforms, or should we make our own?
I think we lost Mohammed, but Mohammed was asking about ways to network on Twitter. It's a good question. I'm sure somebody has a good Twitter thread, but let's keep this space focused on Google Summer of Code for now. Mohammed, if you want to send a follow up DM to Kunal or I, or send a tweet or something like that, I'm sure someone can point you to a good resource as far as networking on Twitter. I think it's a good thing to think about, but yeah, thanks for the question. Let's go to Sarav. Sarav, you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So, hello Kunal. My first question is like, to how many projects I can apply for in Google Summer of Code, and my second question is, uh, in my GitHub profile, on which factors they'll be like reviewing my GitHub profile for like any suggestion to improve the GitHub profile for Google Summer of Code.
So we answered the project question already. The suggestion is only apply for one project for Google Summer of Code. And then Kunal, any thoughts on aspects of the GitHub profile that make you stand out for Google Summer of Code, or do you not think it matters?
I think like it definitely helps, and apart from all the things we have already discussed, I won't like you don't want to repeat those. But what you can also do is have practice some good GitHub practices on your own like personal projects also. I think that would also like help. Make sure your code is clean, that you have available on public, and you are using good practices. And if you're contributing to other open source projects like we mentioned previously, that's great as well.
Yep, I definitely agree. Does that answer the question for you, Sarav?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the question. Chenish, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so like my question is kind of more on the eligibility criteria. So like how is summer code is basically characterized as a work, because like many students are doing the masters in foreign countries where they are restricted by 20-hour work week. So like, how is it like what how do you characterize it? Is it like a full time work? Um,
It's an interesting question. I think how it's characterized probably depends on the specific institution that you're a part of, or the country that you're in. So if there's restrictions, probably depends on where you are. But in general, Google Summer of Code is more flexible than it has been in the past. So you definitely can work part time on the project throughout the duration of the summer. So you don't need to be working full time. It doesn't need to be a full time job for you. So, but again, as far as actual restrictions go, it probably depends on where you are specifically.
so the follow-up question would be: this is considered a work, right? It's not like a freelancing kind of thing.
It's a good question. I think that it is considered for like you don't work for Google, you don't work for the projects. Google is paying you. You're basically an independent contractor uh, being paid through Google. Kunal, correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, you can think of it as an educational program. You're not going to be like working at Google or contracted at Google or like doing anything with Google. Google is just providing a platform. You'll be working on open source projects. So it's more like you can say in an educational program. You're not really contracted with them. It's an educational program. Yeah, like an internship alternative, if you will.
I
Um,
see. And
yeah.
let's say if I want to know more about it, who should I contact? Company representatives or the Google support team?
Oh, the project. But most of the things that you want to know are already available on the Google Summer Code website.
Yeah, definitely. And Janish, if the question's about like eligibility stuff and like some local, regulations or what have you, if that's the question, then potentially the actually reaching out to the folks at Google is a good option. But I would again bear in mind that they're probably fielding a lot of questions from folks right now. So keep that in mind. The resources, as Kunal said, are definitely out there. So try to find the answer on your own if you can, and if not, then you can ask.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks so much, Logan. Thank you so much, Kunal.
Yeah, of course. Let's go to Vedant. Vedant, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I had a doubt that I have completed my proposal, and it's for only one project. And I also had get reviewed that proposal from my mentors as well. So, like I want to contribute in Circuitverse, and in the proposal there are mainly five mentors. So I got review from like three out of five mentors. So I had a doubt that should I submit my proposal on 4th of, like, is there any first come first serve basis or something? Because as Kunal is was one of the mentors, so what is suggestion on this particular thing?
Yeah, this is a good question. I'll give my perspective really quick, which
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
I don't actually think you can, from an organization standpoint, you can review the projects like officially until the application period closes. So there's nothing, if my memory serves me correct, in the mentor organizers portal that you can do until the end of the deadline, April 19th or whatever it is. So I don't know if there's any advantage to being first necessarily, but Kunal, do you want to share any additional perspective on that?
Um, I don't think so. No. Yeah.
Okay, so like a type of flexible, right?
Yeah. It's not like, I mean, obviously a person who is contributing for a while, they have a stronger like portfolio, because they have been involved in the community for quite a long time. But
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I like completely agree with your point. Thank you so much. Like I was working in the community from since a while, like from 9 months, and because I have tried as well from the previous year, but didn't get it. But I stick to the organization and tried this year as well. So I thought this might help, right?
Oh yeah, now this year your chances are increased then. So good.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 100%. That's an awesome sort of success story, if you will, and hopefully, yeah, let us know if what ends up happening if you get selected or not. But fingers crossed for you, and good luck.
For sure. I will tag you both.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Thank you.
Let's go to Kuber.
Hey Kunal, my question is that I'm not from coding background, but I recently started coding. Means 2 months back. So if I'm from civil background, so whenever I will going to apply for remote jobs, so if my degree of civil degree, civil will going to decrease my chances of getting selecting in these companies or not?
No, not really. If you have the like your portfolio and things to showcase and your resume is good, and no one really cares about what branch you are from. Um, no one asks me my college about my college or whatever. So don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter at all.
No, it's all
Yep,
about my
plus one.
degree. Means my degree is not in CS background. It's from civil architecture.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It can be from anything, even biology or whatever. Um, if you have the skills, if you are contributing and you have a nice resume and portfolio and connections and projects, then no one really minds. Yeah.
Just have a
Yeah,
question
agreed.
again. Means I have to make many projects, or I have to make a one single project which will going to create a good impact.
The quality matters more. You may be able to make less number of projects that are really good. That would be what I would. That is something I would recommend. Or contribute
Thank you
to
very
open
much.
source. Like in my in my resume, I did not list any of my projects because I did not have the space left for it. So I just put open source contributions, and it was never like not adding projects in my resume was not never it was not a bad thing for me because I had open source contributions on that.
Thank you for so much.
Yeah, great question. Prakar, you want to go next?
Thanks, Logan. Hi, Kunal. Am I audible?
Yes, we lost you a few times
Yeah.
before, but you're audible.
Yeah. Thanks. I have been contributing to a project and since some months, and I have been seeing it, and I'm very well through the docs. And but the problem is that I have made a PR in one of the projects, and the organization is quite small. So people who review the PR aren't responding that fast. For now, my PR is still open, and it's almost very near to submit the proposal. So is it the time to should I move on to another organization? But the background of the organization, it has been getting selected for the past 7-8 years. So I'm a bit confused.
Kunal, any thoughts on this that you want to share?
I mean, if it's getting selected in the past few years, then there's high chance that they will get selected this year also. But what is it that what is the issue you're facing?
He's got a PR open right now, but doesn't it hasn't been responded to or commented on by the maintainer. So he's wondering if he should move on or stick with this specific project.
We've been there. So that happens, and folks are busy. May not have had the chance. How long has the PR been open?
I usually get response after 2-3 weeks whenever I make some more changes. Like it has been opened. I opened it first time almost 1.5 months back.
So maybe you can mention them. Did you send a reminder to them or something?
Yeah. I regularly send them mention, but still, I guess they are busy somewhere, or I don't know. But they did reply me after 2-3 weeks. But for now, it hasn't been merged yet. I am confident
Yeah,
it is ready to
can
be merged.
yeah. I mean, you can't really do anything. Folks are busy. You have to understand, and yeah, just look something else.
Okay. Thanks, Kunal and Logan.
Yeah, I would also say that it's not if the PR is of high quality, it doesn't actually matter if it's been merged yet. If when you go to apply, when they sit down and take the time to make the decision, if they say, "Oh, okay, Prakar has 3 open PRs, and yeah, they're not perfect yet because we haven't reviewed them and given feedback, but they're pretty close to what we would want." I think you're going to be in a good shape. So just as long as you're not opening a bunch of PRs that are garbage stuff and not actually contributing to the project, I think you're in good shape, even if the maintainers don't have enough time to merge the PR. Though I would make the note that if folks don't have enough time to maintain the project and talk about PRs and stuff like that, I would question whether or not they have enough time to actually successfully mentor a Google Summer of Code project. So I would keep that more in the back of your mind, but I don't think it's detrimental if those PRs don't get merged.
Okay. Thanks, Logan.
Yeah, of course. Great questions and good luck. Let's go to Mayank.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, how's it going?
Yep, pretty good. Thanks for the Twitter space. So my question is it necessary to have a bunch of PRs get merged or open? Because I have been working on a single PR that can be a little large, and adding a feature like it is about adding a feature. So my first question is that is it like quantity does matter or what? And second is how much does like contributing or helping out in like community and stuff helps?
I'll reiterate the point that Kunal made before, which was that quality is probably the most important thing. If you have one really big PR that provides some substantial value versus 100 one-line documentation fixes, I think the quality PR can be the most important. So I would definitely focus on that piece of it. And then going back to your question about community stuff, again, I think just like someone was asking before about documentation PRs and stuff like that, I think those are all helpful indicators. But at the end of the day, if the only contribution that you have made to the project is in the community space, Google Summer of Code might not be the best program for you because again they're looking for evidence of technical ability to make technical code contributions to the project. I'm involved in the community space and I think it's awesome that folks are doing that, but Google Summer of Code isn't paying you to do community work. But obviously it can be a helpful indicator of you being interested and engaged in the project. So it can definitely help, but you need those code contributions as well.
And if you're also like helping someone else contribute to the project, reviewing their PRs, that can help you in your Google Summer of Code.
Yeah,
Okay,
agreed.
thank you.
Yeah, sure, Mike. Great question. Let's go to Kostabub.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my question is regarding how to maintain a healthy relationship with your mentor. Maybe you're working together, or how to maintain the conversation with your mentor. A question like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kunal, as a Google Summer of Code mentor, any thoughts on best practices for maintaining that positive relationship?
Just be open to feedback. Contribute to make progress. Don't be afraid to ask questions. But also don't be first like Google it yourself and try to make it easy for your mentor to help you. Don't expect your mentor to solve every problem. Like you should be able to like do a little bit of a research and stuff. If you are trying to be spoon fed, then your application would not be considered that much good because um, you're not willing to explore yourself, and the mentor wouldn't care. So um, try to make it easy for your mentor to help you, and just follow the code of conduct of the community, and that's basically about it. Yeah.
Yep, 100% agreed. I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Kunal, and thank you, Logan.
Yeah, of course. Let's go to we'll wrap up with I have a hard stop at 9 o'clock. I have to hop onto another, or the top of the hour for me. I have to hop onto another call. So we'll do two more really quick questions. Amkar, you want to go next?
So my question is that what if one won't select in the GSOC? Are they still allowed to involve in the project and have a regular? Can they attend the regular meetings with the mentors along with the
Yes.
other students who got
Yes.
selected?
Yes.
100%. Yeah. So as Kunal mentioned right at the beginning of the space, the focus for you as a contributor should be making contributions to the project. it would be awesome if this year you get selected for Google Summer of Code, but you should be making those contributions regardless of whether or not the outcome is you getting selected for Google Summer of Code. As we saw someone else, I forgot whose name it was, mentioned earlier, they applied last year, didn't get selected, and they spent the last 9 months making contributions on and off to that project. And now they're set up for success this year because they spent this last year making those contributions. So you should definitely continue to contribute regardless of whether or not you get selected this year. And it's common. A lot of people make contributions, a few contributions the first time around, don't get selected, and then continue that process into the future and end up getting selected in the future. So definitely keep it up. Amkar, thanks for the question. We'll go for the last one, and sorry for folks who we didn't get a chance to answer your question. Feel free to shoot a tweet or a DM, and happy to try to answer it. But Shabham, you want to go last with the final question? Hopefully it's an exciting one.
Yeah, Logan. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Kunal, for this space. So my question is how a good proposal should look like. And I have one more question. I am looking to apply at a CNCF project, and CNCF has not yet released a template for the proposal. So should I? So do they release the template at the when the applications are open, or they just expect the proposal as it is?
Kunal, I don't know if you have any specific advice on the CNCF stuff.
So, can you repeat, like, elaborate on your question?
Just wondering. He's just wondering about templates specifically for applying for CNCF.
Oh, templates. Join in the CNCF Slack. You can join the mentoring channel, and you can like ask your question over there. I'm not sure about template. I haven't done Google Summer of Code with CNCF. I've done LFX. So you can ask your questions in the CNCF Slack channel, mentoring channel.
Yeah, but
right, I'll do that.
Shabham, the thing that I'll point out is you definitely find out if they are going to give a template or not, because that can be one of the reasons that folks don't get selected is there is a template for whatever the organization is, and for some reason you don't follow that template, and then the project is expecting to know XYZ information and they don't have that information, so they can't make the decision the same way that they would with their other candidates. So 100% your mind is in the right space. Figure out if there's a template, and go and ask the CNCF people, and maybe even open a PR to the website if the template isn't there, and you could be the person who adds it. So yeah, great question.
Yeah, I will do that, and I also ask a question that how a good proposal should look like.
Yeah,
could you answer?
Yeah, it depends on the project specifically. So I would say look at the template, look at what they're looking for. A lot of projects release successful projects, successful project proposals from the past years. Talk to folks who are, I think it's usually public, who did Google Summer of Code last year. So reach out to those students to look at their proposals and use all those resources that are out there. But again, as far as what a successful proposal looks like, it really depends on the specific project. The important part is follow the template, make contributions, and make sure to showcase those things on your actual proposal.
Got it, Logan. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Kunal.
Yeah, of course. This was great, and Kunal, I appreciate your perspective and answering all these questions. This was a ton of fun, and I'm super optimistic and keeping my fingers crossed for all the folks who are here applying for Google Summer of Code this year. If you end up getting selected, or even if you don't, feel free to reach out to Kunal or I. Always happy to provide suggestions and guidance. But yeah, thanks again, Kunal, for helping out with this, and thanks again, everyone, for tuning in and listening.
Yep. Thanks for hosting, Logan. Have a good night,
Yeah, of
everyone,
course.
and a good day.
Yeah, bye, folks.
Bye.
See ya.